Hey guys, today we are going to talk about the communicative language teaching. The communicative language teaching, CLT, is not a method, it's a guided idea. The purpose of communicative language teaching is to help students to produce authentic language and communicate with others. Communicative language teaching integrates multiple skills such as listening and writing.
Okay, to help students communicate, the teacher needs to provide rich and authentic input. There can be many approaches to achieve a communicative language teaching. Task-based is the most common teaching approach. Teachers set up a goal, give students to real-life language tasks, and students respond in a meaningful way. In this process, students are motivated to use the language to serve as a purpose of communication.
Communicative language teaching meaning exists forms. It doesn't mean that grammar is important. Teachers should teach communicative within context and through communicative text. In this way, grammar isn't present as a list of rigid rules, but natural patterns that the student acquires in the learning context.
The origins of the communicative language teaching (CLT) are to be found in the change in the British language teaching tradition dating from the late 1960s.
Until then, situational language teaching represents the major British approach to teaching English as a foreign language. In situational language teaching, language was taught by practicing basic structures in meaningful situation-based activities.
There was no future to the situational language teaching. For this reason, it was necessary to return the traditional concept that utterance carried meanings in themselves and expressed the meaning and intention of the speaker and writers who create them.
Two criticisms to the situational language teaching were: the first one, Chomsky had demonstrated that the current standard structural theories of language were incapable of accounting for the fundamental characteristics of language, the creativity and uniqueness of individual sentences.
Now, the second one is British applied linguistics emphasized another fundamental dimension of language that was inadequately addressed in approaches to language teaching at that time, the functional and communicative potential of language.
With increasing interdependence of European countries came the need for greater efforts to teach adults the major language of the European common market.
Wilkin wrote a document which had a significant impact on the development of communicative language teaching. Wilkins' contribution was an analysis of the communicative meanings that a language learning needs to understand and express.
Both American and British proponents see the approach in two ways. The first is make communicative competence the goal of language teaching, and the second is develop procedures for the teaching of the four language skills that acknowledge the interdependence of language and communication.
Communicative language teaching is considered more than an integration of grammatical and functional teaching, or it means using procedures where learners work in pairs or groups employing available language resources in problem-solving tasks.
Some difference between the audiolingual method and the communicative language teaching are the following. First, audiolingual. Drilling is a central technique and native speaker-like pronunciation is sought.
Okay, the following is grammatical explanation is avoided, and the following is communicative activities only come after a long process of rigid drills and exercises.
The next one is the use of the student's native language is forbidden. Translation is forbidden at early levels.
Second, communicative language teaching. Drilling may occur but peripherally. Comprehensible pronunciation is sought.
Any device that helps the learner is accepted, varying according to their age, interest, etc. Attempts to communicative may be encouraged from very beginning.
Judicious use of native language is accepted where feasible. Translation may be used where students need or benefit from it.
Now we are going to focus in approach, theory of language. The communicative approach in language starts from a theory of language as communication.
The goal of language teaching is to develop what Hines referred to as communicative competence. Hines coined this term in order to contrast a communicative view of language and Chomsky's theory of competence.
Now we are going to make a comparison between Chomsky and Hines. For Chomsky, the focus of linguistic theory was to characterize the abstract abilities speakers possess that enable them to produce grammatically correct sentences in a language.
Hines' theory of communicative competence was a definition of what a speaker needs to know in order to be communicatively competent in a speech community. In Hines' view, a person who acquires communicative competence acquires both knowledge and ability for language use.
Now we're going to focus on theory of language. We're going to see four authors, which are Hines, Halliday, Whittinson, and Canal and Swain.
The first one is Del Hines. A person who acquires communicative competence acquires both knowledge and ability for language use with respect to the following.
First, whether something is formally possible.
Where something is feasible in virtue of the means of implementation available.
Where something is appropriate in relation to a context in which it is used and evaluated.
And the last one, whether something is in fact done, actually performed, and what is doing entails.
The second one is Michael Halliday. He describes 7 basic functions that language performs for children learning their first language.
First one, the instrumental function, using language to get things.
The second one, the regulatory function, using language to control the behavior of others.
The interactional function, using language to create interaction with others.
The personal function, using language to express personal feelings and meanings.
Number 5, heuristic function, using language to learn and discover.
Next one, the imaginative function, using language to create a world of the imagination.
Finally, the representational function, using language to communicate information.
The third one is Henry Whittinson. In his book, Teaching Language as Communication, he presents a view of relationship between linguistic systems and their communicative values in a text and discourse. He focused on the communicative acts, highlighting the ability to use language for different purposes.
The last authors are Cannell and Swain. They present a more pedagogically influenced analysis of communicative competence, in which 4 dimensions of communicative competence are identified.
First, grammatical competence refers to what Chomsky calls linguistic competence and what Hines intends by what is formally possible.
Second, sociolinguistic competence refers to an understanding of the social context in which communication takes place, including role relationships, the shared information of the participants, and the communicative purpose for the interactions.
The third one is discourse competence, refers to the interpretation of individual message elements in terms of their interconnectedness and of how meaning is represented in relationship to the entire discourse or text.
Final, strategic competence refers to the coping strategies that communicators employ to initiate, terminate, maintain, repair, and redirect communication.
Now we're going to focus on the theory of learning. The characteristics of this theory are the following: creative construction hypothesis, the second one is an interactional theory, and the last one is a sociocultural learning theory.
Theory of learning has 3 principles. The first one is communication principle. Activities that involve real promote learning.
The second one is task principle, activities in which language is used for carrying out meaningful tasks promote learning.
The last one is the meaningfulness principle. Language that is meaningful to the learner supports the learning process. They address the conditions needed to promote second language learning rather than the processes of language acquisition.
Objectives in a communicative approach. First one, language as a means of expression.
Second one, language as a semiotic system and an object of learning.
Third one, language as a means of expressing values and judgments about oneself and others.
Next one, remedial learning based on error analysis.
And final, Language learning were in the school curriculum.
Now we're going to talk about the types of learning and teaching activities. As a first point, we see functional communication activities. The second one is social interaction activities, the learner roles, and the teacher roles.
Now we are going to talk about the teacher role.
The main role is to facilitate the communication process between all the participants in the classroom and between these participants and the various activities and tests.
The following is to act as an independent participant within the learning teaching group.
Organizer of the resources and as the resources himself.
Guide were in the classroom procedures and activities.
The next one is researcher and learning.
And finally, analyst, counselor, and a group process manager.
Needs analyst.
Teachers are expected to plan group and individual instructions that respond to the learner's needs.
Motivation for the studying the language.
Counselors.
The teacher is expected to exemplify an effective communicator seeking to maximize the meshing of speaker intention and hearer interpretation through the use of paraphrase.
Group process manager.
Organize the classroom as a setting for communication and communicative activities.
Feedback to pointing out alternatives and extension and assisting groups in self-correction discussion.
Teacher notes such gaps for later commentary and community practice.
The role of instructional materials.
Materials as a way of influencing the quality of classroom interaction and language use.
Text-based materials.
Text based on conversation based on communicative approach.
Task-based materials.
Basically activities of student interactions.
Realia.
Authentic from life.
Materials based on real life, such magazine, advertisements, newspapers, and we use to support communicative exercises.
Now we're going to talk about classroom activities. The teachers who use the communicative language teachings choose classroom activities based on what they believe is going to be the most effective for students developing communicative abilities in the target language. Oral activities are more popular among these. Communicative language teacher use activities that promotes collaboration, fluency, and comfort in target language. So I'm gonna say 6 activities that are common in this method, that is information gap, opinion sharing, scavenger hunt, role play, group work, and interview. We're gonna apply the last one, interview, in the next scene.
Oh my god, Erika! Please, an interview for visiting
Yes,
you.
of course, no problem.
Okay, how do you feel?
I am so happy, thank you, gracias, grazie, arigato. Ah!
Do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, God, to my family, to my team, and the fans, principal to the fans, thank you all. Sorry, bye.
Okay, thank you, lady. That was Lady Gaga.